My name is Heather Renwick. I'm legal director at the Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth, and I invite you to join me in celebrating the 10th anniversary of Graham versus Florida. On May 17, 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court held in Graham that it's unconstitutional to sentence a child to life without parole for a non-homicide offense. The decision mandated a meaningful opportunity for release for Terrance Graham and more than 100 others sentenced as children to life without parole for non-homicide crimes. Graham versus Florida built on the Supreme Court's prior ruling in Roper versus Simmons, which abolished the death penalty for children in 2005. And it served as a crucial step towards the Supreme Court's subsequent decisions in Miller versus Alabama and Montgomery versus Louisiana, which have impacted well over 2,000 people sentenced to life without parole as children. The decision in Graham has also served as the basis for de facto and parole-related litigation, which have impacted hundreds more people around the country. So now I want to introduce Bryan Gowdy and Ralph Brazel. Bryan represented Terrance Graham at the U.S. Supreme Court 10 years ago and continues to represent Terrance today. And Ralph was freed from prison as a direct result of the Supreme Court's decision in Graham versus Florida. I hope you enjoy this conversation between Bryan Gowdy and Ralph Brazel.
My name is Bryan Gowdy. I represented Terrance Graham in the U.S. Supreme Court 10 years ago and still represent him today.
Hello, my name is Ralph Brazel Jr. And as a juvenile, I was sentenced to triple life in federal prison for a nonviolent juvenile drug offense. And by the grace of God, in 2013, I was blessed to get out as a result of the great work of tremendous people like you, Bryan. After the Supreme Court had ruled in 2010 that it was illegal to give a juvenile a life sentence for a non-homicide offense, I am now blessed to live in Southern California, have a wonderful wife. Between the two of us, we have 6 children. I am the operations manager at the local mosque here. And I am definitely honored to be a part of the board of the Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth, and also honored to be one of the co-founders of ICANN, Incarcerated Children's Advocacy Network, along with Eric Alexander and Xavier McElrath-Bay.
Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know people like Ralph. When I started representing Terrance in late 2006, I didn't really know anything about the issue of juveniles serving life sentences. And my entire goal early on was just to help Terrance. And I think that's what everybody involved with the campaign has really been about, helping individuals. And all those people come together and end up helping a lot of individuals, not only the incarcerated youth, but their family members and the victims of those crimes, and helping with redemption. And so it was obviously a very exciting day when I heard from the U.S. Supreme Court that they were going to hear Terrance's case. I really never thought that that would happen. My goal always was to keep Terrance's case going so that somebody else would win a case in the U.S. Supreme Court that would help them. I didn't anticipate it would be our case. It was a very exciting 6 months between the time that the court agreed to hear the case and when we went to argue it in November of 2009. There were so many people that helped, and so I really don't deserve any credit because there was just, I can't even name all the people that helped during those 6 months. Lawyers, advocates, many different organizations that came together. People, I didn't know Ralph at that point, but I understand he was doing work then too. So there were so many different people. And at least for me personally, though, it was always about helping Terrance. And I think what kept me up late at night was whether I was going to answer the questions of the oral argument in a way that would ensure that Terrance would be released sometime when he could have a meaningful life. So, and then, I later learned, and I'll let Ralph speak for a minute, that the decision obviously helped many other people.
Yeah, just to kind of give a sense of the picture from the other side, where I know there was probably like a big groundswell of hope and overwhelming hope on the outside. The situation on the inside was a lot different, and the reason is because when you're on the inside, every year you hear about this new law that you think can help, and then it ends up not applying to you. It might apply to just a few people, or the Supreme Court rules on it, or whatever court, but it's not retroactive, even though it hits you squarely in the mouth, for lack of a better term. It applies specifically to you. So you build up this defense mechanism. You don't want to get your hopes up. So when it came out, and of course there was a lot of discussion around it in the prison where I was at. I was in Jessup, Georgia at the time, and but you still kind of you still restrain yourself, and all the way up until the end, all the way up until I got that final word. You're excited about what's going on. My case kept getting it was extended numerous times. About 6 times it was actually pushed back, my hearing on my appeal. And it's not until finally you actually get the word that you're able to kind of exhale and everything. So I actually with the time I had served, I actually had 7 days left after the judge had granted my appeal. And so I had a headache for 3 weeks straight. So that last week that I had, the last 7 days, and then those next 2 weeks when I was out on the street, just like nonstop. It was just, I never knew you could have a headache from excitement, and everybody was really excited, all the way down to the staff where I was at, which was something that that's a point that's not lost upon me. That really meant a lot. It was a big deal, because you don't really see lifers getting out like that just in general, whether or not they were juvenile or whatever, unless there was some type of cooperation with the government or something like that. So that definitely wasn't the situation in my case. And it was a great time. It was a truly great time.
When the decision came out, I think Ralph said a minute ago about being guarded. And I was, and I'm still guarded today. Terrance is still in prison today. I actually talked to him about an hour ago before this. And really, the decision just started a whole nother round of things of working for him, as well as I've had other clients now like him since then. And there's been just ups and downs over the last 10 years, both in his case individually and other people's cases. And so you kind of have to just keep that hope alive, but you have to have a steady strain and not get too excited, because, with Terrance, all that decision meant, it was huge, but it was also small, because all the court said was he wasn't going to get life. And when we came back here to Jacksonville and had to do the resentencing, by the time we got to the resentencing, there had been 2 Florida appellate courts that had upheld resentencings of 70 and 90 years for juveniles. And so that was 2012. And I would have felt a complete failure if the judge had given him 90 years, even if we had won in the U.S. Supreme Court. And he was sentenced to 25 years, and he has a review at 20 years, which should come up in 3 years. But it's not like it ever ends. There's been other clients I've taken on since then, and we've had some successes and some losses. And we've had things like here in Florida, the legislature has changed the law. And I think I've seen a tremendous change in attitudes from where my perspective, my vantage point in Jacksonville, Florida, and that in that you see a lot more forward thinking about ways to deal with youth who, commit serious crimes. And that's been encouraging. But at the same time, it feels like we take maybe 2 or 3 steps forward and then we take a step back. And that's really what it's been like for me for the last 10 years. But some of the greatest, the high points have been meeting people like Ralph and other people who have called, who have benefited from the decision. And my hope is that Terrance someday will be able to talk to Ralph on the outside.
Yeah, I'm definitely praying that I do get to meet him on the outside, hopefully one day soon, God willing. Just reflecting on that, just the fact that he's still locked up and, Miller's still incarcerated, Montgomery. It speaks to the hypocrisy of a lot of the human race, and the hypocrisy is of a level that it would, it could drive a person insane. Like if you're not strong, if you don't have anything to hold on to, anything to cling to, just being exposed to people like Jody, people like yourself, the campaign for the fair sentencing of youth and National Family Network. And it actually restored my faith in humanity, because you just, you got to just kind of picture it that they reached out to me from nowhere. Like I didn't know them at all. I didn't even know that they existed. They had never spoken to me before. Even now, with being a member of the board of directors for the campaign and, being one of the co-founders of ICANN, the people that I get to meet, I promise you, I'm just asking myself, I was like, is this person real? Just people are just so, so selfless. And that's something that continues to give me hope in the face of, a lot of this tragedy, that continues, in our nation and in the world, just overall. I often talk about and, think about the 2 co-founders of ICANN, like Eric Alexander and Xavier McAlrath-Bate. Look at what they were doing. They weren't just sitting in prison, just sitting on their hands, so to speak. They were actually making a concerted effort to improve who they were as human beings. And that work ended up transcending to society, so now they're going before legislatures. They're speaking to legislators on both sides of the aisle. So they have an active role in helping to reshape our society. But these are 2 individuals, as an example, who society had determined that they were just going to throw away. It's a heck of an experience to sit in front of the judge, sit in the courtroom and be told that society doesn't want you anymore at the age of 15, 16, 17, some 12, 13, you just have to just take a minute and try to ponder upon that.
Just use Terrance's case as an example, though I've seen this in other cases I've worked on too. What I'm really happy about, I think, is the degree of advocacy, I think, for youth has increased in the last 10 years. My own personal background was, before I worked on Terrance's case, I was a commercial litigator, and that means I represented large businesses. And I was taught how, in those business litigation, to uncover every nook and cranny to win a case. And when I handled Terrance's case, and I came on after he had been sentenced, I found that wasn't really the case with youth. And I was always struck, like, wait a minute, we have lawyers who will uncover every nook and cranny, every little thing to win a case that's about money, but we don't do that when it's about somebody's life. Why is that? And it always struck me as wrong. And in Terrance's case, if you go back and you look, the first time he went in front of the judge, I wasn't involved in the case at this point, but the judge said something just like Ralph said to Terrance. He said, "There's nothing more we can do for you other than lock you up and protect society from you. There's nothing more. And the judge had been given an impression that Terrance had, as I always put it, had grown up with the Brady Bunch and somehow it just turned out bad. When we went the second time to the same exact judge who sentenced Terrance to life without parole, we put on a far more comprehensive case. We uncovered every nook and cranny. We did that business audit that Ralph just mentioned. And we gave the judge a much more complete picture of Terrance's life up until that point. And he said really the complete opposite of what he had said the first time. He said, yeah, I don't think I've seen anybody that's ever, had a more difficult upbringing. And he had a completely different picture. And that was because it wasn't just me, there were other people involved, a social worker, other lawyers. We gave the judge that picture. We gave him that audit. And I would have liked him to give a little lower sentence still. He came from life to 25 years. And I felt like at least he at least had a far more complete picture of Terrance's life. And so I think that's important for every youth in these situations, and that the legislatures understand that too. I know, here in Florida, we've had people like Ralph go over and talk to legislatures who I think if you just read the headlines, you really don't understand the depth of these individuals and what they've been through most of the time. And it's just not so black and white as Ralph said. So, anyway, I too am encouraged by, I remember at the oral argument for Graham, we were discussing whether it was 37 or 38 states that allowed life without parole for non-homicide for juveniles. And I think today there's 23 states in the District of Columbia that ban it altogether, not just for non-homicides. And there's 6 other states that don't have anybody serving it. So it's been a complete sea change in the way the map looks. I remember the 37 or 38 states that allowed it back then, and I was trying to figure out how we were going to argue it was unusual to the Supreme Court. So that's an encouraging sign. That's a sign that gives hope, and I guess I'm really wondering where we'll be in 10 years from now.
It's very important. People really need to understand that the same way they say it takes a village to raise a child, it takes that same village to fight for that child. And they say many hands make light work. That's one of my favorite quotes. And it takes everybody. It's people from all different walks of life and facets of life. Granted, a lot of people didn't know about this. Like, people are really surprised when we come upon them and explain to them that, hey, the U.S. not only sentences children to die in prison, but the U.S. is the only country that does that. While at the same time we want to stick our chest out saying that we're better than everyone else. So it's just a matter of getting the word out and increasing the ranks and getting people to open their hearts and their minds to this cause. And a lot of people, once they hear about it, they just jump right in with both feet, and they're willing to help out. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't actually speak a little bit about the current state of society, with what's going on with this COVID-19 pandemic and everything, and how that's affecting those in prison. It's really exposing even more the lack of value that many in society, how can I say, assign to people who have been convicted of a crime. They don't even consider them to still be human beings worth, whose lives are worth saving. All the way from a person who might have stolen something out of a store to somebody else who was on the opposite side of the spectrum. And the numbers are, as you can imagine, just increasing in terms of people who are dying in prison from COVID-19, and people who have contracted the virus and everything. So just in closing, I just want to continue to help to get the word out about the ever-growing membership of the Incarcerated Children's Advocacy Network, also affectionately known as ICANN. There are a growing amount of tremendous men and women, you know, on the front lines. Those were men and women who were children, and they were told that they would be just thrown away by society as children. And they've been blessed to come out, and they're making great strides in society. They're helping to shape and mold a new society and a new world. And I tip my hat to them. And, you know, Bryan, I just want to say, you know, thank you very much for taking the time out to have this conversation with me. I greatly appreciate it. It was fantastic. You know, I love great conversation. And I just want to send a word of thanks to the campaign for giving us this platform and this opportunity to share this story.
Well, thank you, Ralph, for everything you've done and for talking to us. Your life is, you know, so spectacular, 6 kids, and it makes it really feel good that to see that you and other people like you have really have such an enriching life. And I want to thank the campaign for everything it did in Terrance's case and has done in so many other cases and legislation and so many other forms of advocacy for children. And I'm sure it'll be here in another 10 years, or when we're talking about the 20-year Graham anniversary. And I hope long before we get to that next anniversary, you know, Terrance will be out and he can come to one of the campaign meetings and meet all the wonderful people that have worked so hard for his case and so many other youth over the years. And thank you.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure.